R2 back course talking Final Fantasy XIII, something we pretty much never talk about on the channel. There's a rumor a couple weeks ago about like a potential like remaster coming up at some points that we've yet to talk about. We're doing other shit on the channel. I want to get around to it eventually, and here we are. Final Fantasy XIII is one of the few in the franchise that I just didn't really enjoy. I have played only the first one in the trilogy, so when I talk about 13, I'm just talking about the first game. It's just one I played it to completion, like I've finished the story, and I just kind of never played it again. I've only done like one full playthrough of Final Fantasy XIII, and that's it. I did kind of revisit it when the trilogy first came to Xbox Game Pass. I started up a new playthrough on 13. Didn't get very far, and just kind of haven't touched it since. When I talk about like Final Fantasies that I like, I mostly mean like Final Fantasy VII and beyond. 8, 9, 10, and beyond, and stuff like that. Yeah, I've not played a ton of the older Final Fantasies. It just wasn't my era. And I've enjoyed them all. Like, I've played them all multiple times in my life, right? Even, like, 16, which I've only just recently did a second playthrough because I want to get the platinum on it, which I did get recently. I've only played it, like, twice, but I do enjoy the characters and the world and the story of 16, even though it's not one that I want to, like, play all the time. Because Final Fantasy 15 is one that I kind of had some negative opinions on when it was first coming out, and I didn't really particularly enjoy it. And then throughout the years, kind of, like, revisiting it and playing through it again and stuff like that, I've actually come around to, like, enjoying 15 more these days. 15 does also have its own problems as well. It's not to say that there's no redeeming qualities about 13, because it's obviously a beautiful game, great music, it's a Final Fantasy game, of course, and I like the majority of the characters. I think the only one I didn't really care for, from recollection, it's been a long time since I played it, was Hope. I didn't really care for him. A lot of people don't like Snow from what I've seen, but I don't remember disliking Snow. Obviously, Lightning's cool, Fang, Vanille, Saz, they're all great. To be perfectly honest with you, I couldn't tell you like a ton about the story. I remember they're all cursed with like the LC, Falcy, whatever fucking thing it was, and they're all gonna like turn to crystal at some point, or whatever the fuck happens, right? The biggest complaint for me, and a lot of people out there, was the linearity of the game, and I think it's a fair complaint, because it is very, very fucking linear. Up to where you get to like Grand Pulse or whatever, and then it's like a decent Final Fantasy game. If the whole of 13 was like Grand Pulse to a certain degree, I think it'd have been perceived way better in a lot of ways. A lot of people will defend 13 and compare it to 10, because 10 is a quite linear Final Fantasy game as well if you compare it to like 7, 8, and 9 and shit. And that is a bit of a fair comparison, but also 10 was a whole console generation prior, and towards the very beginning of the PS2's life cycle. And like while they might be like similarly kind of linear games, 13 should have been a lot bigger and better because it's on like 360 and PS3. This is all to say that, I wanted to revisit the game at some point in my life, inevitably, but we've been kind of holding out for that remaster / remake, whatever they may do at some point with the trilogy. And I want to play the sequels, the second one, the third one, because I've never played them. I want to give like the whole trilogy a chance, even if I didn't necessarily like the first one too much. I want to see what the second one and the third ones are like. And despite being somebody that's kind of talked negatively about 13 for quite a long time on the channel, I do want there to be like a port, a remaster, a remake of the trilogy at some point in the future. Anyways, let's dive into this rumor from a few weeks ago of a remastered trilogy coming out at some point, apparently. It's on 4chan, so, damn sure it's real. So they say, Final Fantasy XIII Remastered Trilogy coming to PC, PS5, Xbox Series X. And we start out strong here, because they say Square Enix, which I don't know, maybe it's just a Square Enix but better, I don't know. Will announce a remastered trilogy of the Final Fantasy XIII games. So they actually start with, each game will cost $50, but if you already own the games on PC, Xbox, you can get a huge discount. The games will get a bundle for $129. Now the price point here is a little bit interesting, just because that does seem a little bit pricey. It would come down to what exactly these remasters are. Because you can look at something like Crisis Core Reunion, right? Now that's a whole different thing, because they remastered the game, but also changed up the combat, redid some cutscenes, obviously re-recorded all the dialogue and shit like that. But it was, technically kind of like a remaster, remake, somewhere in between. But it was a $50 game. Also, if you look at something like Final Fantasy X on modern consoles, for some reason it's $50 on Xbox, which is, the same price as what we're talking about here, but you are getting obviously 10 too with that. It's like half the price on PlayStation. It's like $25. I don't know why that is. For the 13 trilogy on modern consoles, it's obviously only available on Xbox as of right now. If you want to buy them, it's $16 for 13, and it's $20 each for 13.2 and Lightning Returns. So at least as of right now, if you wanted to buy the 13 trilogy on Xbox, it would cost you like $56, right? So a little bit more than what individually these remastered versions of the games would apparently cost. So that's why the price is a little bit kind of weird. You do have DLC with like 13.2 and Lightning Returns. I think it's like outfits, weapons, or something like that, right? I don't know entirely. I don't think there's like actual expansions. Maybe you guys can correct me on that. But that could potentially factor into some value. Looking at it on Xbox, 13.2 has like a bunch of outfits that are like $1 a piece. Some are like $1.50, $2, something like that. The outfits on Lightning Returns are a couple bucks. They're like $2, $3, $4 at a time sometimes. So that could factor into value to a certain degree if they just want to throw all that into the game as well for like the remastered versions. But if we're just getting like remastered versions of the games, just 4K, 60 frames per second, they obviously couldn't charge $50 a piece for those because it's just not worth it. I say couldn't. They definitely could do that. We've seen it before with like Rockstar when they brought like Red Dead Redemption, somewhat recently in the last like year or two or whatever to modern consoles. It's like $50. That's what it costs, and it's just like the fucking PC port or something. They didn't do anything to it. It's not remastered or anything. They just brought it over. Boom, $50. It means if they remastered it, they'd charge you 60 or 70 or some shit, right? So they could do that. I don't think anybody would realistically be willing to pay $50 a fucking piece for them. If they do more than just, give us better visuals and frame rate, and maybe they added some stuff to it or whatever, kind of like Crisis Core Union, then maybe they could get away with like charging a little bit more, but it's still not $50 individually. That's crazy. The reduced price thing on like PC and Xbox, it makes sense. That's what we see, in recent years with like, The Last of Us Part 2 remastered earlier this year. If you already owned it, the original version, you could upgrade for like $10 coming at the end of this month. Horizon Zero Dawn remastered. If you already own it, $10. So I can see them doing something like that for PC and Xbox. It'd be unfair to the PlayStation players, but also it's kind of Square Enix's fault or whoever's for not having the 13 fucking trilogy on the PlayStation platforms these days. Like, what the fuck's up with that? I still don't get it. It's so weird to me. Like, why is the 13 trilogy the only one that's like Xbox exclusive for some fucking reason? Anyways, it's been long enough on that one. The next thing on their list, games will run at 4K 60 FPS. There's not much to talk about here. This is to be expected if they ever do a remaster. Improved graphics and textures, which is kind of the 4K thing we already talked about here. Additional effects as well. It's a little interesting. I imagine that's like, I don't know, when you do an attack and there's like an explosion, maybe they add stuff there. That's what additional effects means. I don't know. Obviously, when we're looking at stuff with this list here, we're talking about it as if it's real. I don't know if it is, but that would be them like adding stuff to it. If we're talking about them, trying to charge a certain price for this shit. If they're adding additional shit to the game, then I don't know that the additional effects warrants a $50 price tag, but that's something there, I guess. All DLC included, that's to be expected with any kind of remaster type shit. That's generally what they do. I can't think of a time where they've ever not done that. Maybe there is something out there where they remastered a game and didn't include all of its additional content, but that's usually what you expect. PS5 will get DualSense support. That's to be expected also with any kind of game coming out on PS5, whether it's remaster or original release. Original and remixed OST is a little interesting. I say that because I'm not sure how often it is that when they simply remaster a game that they would go through the effort of making like a remix soundtrack, doing like a whole new soundtrack for it. Maybe it happens out there, but like with like Final Fantasy X, for example, with like the HD remaster, like they rearranged the soundtrack, but I don't believe there's like a new soundtrack for 10 HD or whatever. I don't know about 10.2. Maybe that's the thing that they could do for the 13 trilogy. Maybe they come up with a remix soundtrack. Quality of life updates like previous remasters, fast battle mode, turn off random battles, level up characters easily, etc. So those kind of features are to be expected to a certain degree. You do have like speed up shit with like 7, 8, 9, and 12. On consoles, we don't have like a speed up feature for 10. I think it is there on the PC version though. This specifically does say fast battle mode, so like just the battles would go faster and you'd be like walking in the world at the same speed, so it'd be kind of weird to do. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they do that. Level up characters easily feature, I don't know what that is, because I don't recall that from previous, remasters or enhanced versions of older Final Fantasies, because you have, like FF7, it's just no encounters, like the speed up feature, and then it's like infinite health, God mode, essentially, where you have like limit breaks and shit like that, right? And like FF9 is just no encounters and enhanced speed, right? There's not like a level up thing that I'm aware of in like 7, 8, 9, but maybe there's other Final Fantasies that have that? I don't know. The no random encounters one is a point of contention for people because there's not really random encounters, at least in like 13. Like you see the enemies in front of you, right? It's like Final Fantasy 12. You just walk up to them and fight them essentially. You obviously go into like a load screen battle, but it's kind of like 12 in that way. But I think it's like you're just kind of split hairs at that point. Like, it just means like you wouldn't run into enemies, right? You can like click these buttons, and you can like walk into an enemy and it wouldn't engage in a fight. I think people are looking too much into that. I don't necessarily think that this like leak here is real or whatever, but just like in the defense of it, I don't think it necessarily means like actual random fucking encounters. And the last bit here for this list is early 2025, which, we'll see. Some of you guys know how we do it here on the channel. We like to look at these rumors sometimes just to kind of pick them apart. We didn't necessarily like go hard on this leak or whatever, but if you want my opinion, I don't think it's real. Because I don't think they would go through the effort of remixing the music, and I don't think they'd charge $50 a piece for them. Mainly it's that $50 price tag a piece, even if there's like a bundle to get them for a little bit cheaper, because it's just unrealistic. Like, here's the remaster finally of the 13 trilogy. Also, it's going to cost you at minimum $130 fucking dollars. Like, who's going to pay that really? Unless you're like a 13 super fan. So a good question we could ask in regards to like a 13 trilogy remaster at some point is, would they do them individually, or would they just sell like a thing that just you get all 3 games? Like, it's here, you pay this one price and you get all 3 games. That's it. Like, there's no individual pricing at all. Would they do that? I don't know. Say that, and then we talked about Final Fantasy X a few times in this video. They did that with 10 and 10.2. I don't think you can buy those separately. You have to buy the bundle of getting 10 and 10.2, right? And it's outside of Square Enix, but it's the first thing I think of is like the Mass Effect Legendary Edition, where you get the trilogy, the first 3 games, right? It was like $60 I think when it came out, so I could see them doing something kind of similar. Of course, pass off to you guys. What are your thoughts on this? We're obviously, 2+ weeks late to talking about this shit. But here we are finally. What are your thoughts on this particular leak/rumor for the 13 Trilogy Remaster? If it matters at all to the conversation, the post is no longer there on 4chan. I don't necessarily think that that's, evidence of it being real or not real, because it can be deleted for a multitude of reasons. And it can be deleted because it isn't real. It can be deleted because it is real. Who the fuck knows, right? Anyways, that's the video. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. Search network in the description below. Follow me to _YT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.